Hey guys, it's Amber. Welcome back to my channel. So I got ready for bed and then I was like, actually let's film a video, because what makes more sense than filming a video at almost 10 o'clock at night? I want to film this video because I have not been blogging my monthly reading wrap-ups like I normally would. I feel like by this time last year I'd read like 20 to 25 books, and the year before that was even more. Like I remember January 2017, I think I read 11 books. I've only read 12 books so far in the whole of 2019, or maybe 13. No, 12. I have them all sitting here because it's not that many, and because I want to just quickly go through them with you guys. Since I haven't been doing those blog posts, I will also share this video on the blog for anyone who reads there but isn't subscribed here. But you totally should just subscribe here because we have great times on this channel. This is gonna be like a what I've read so far in 2019 book wrap up kind of thing. Yeah, so let's just jump into the books. I've been consistently one book behind on my Goodreads reading goal for all of 2019, which literally does not bother me. Like I could care less. I know I'm still gonna hit that goal because it's like just about a book a week, and I know there will be weeks eventually when I am reading more than one book in a week, but it's just a Goodreads goal. So anyone else who is being like haunted by their Goodreads goal, or the fact that it tells you how many books behind you are on your goal, like remember, it's an app, you can delete it. So the first book that I finished in 2019 was Severance by Ling Ma. I picked this from Book of the Month. I love Book of the Month. It's one of my favorite subscriptions that I get. I just redid my budget, and that was the one thing I knew I could not cut from my budget. So this book is set kind of in two different timelines. One is after the world is kind of ending because of an outbreak of this virus, and the other time setting is right before all that starts to go down. So we follow our main character, Candace, as she works in publishing, printing Bibles, specifically handling like the manufacturing printing element of it. And she's kind of like telling us the story of the last couple months of her life, and even before then, like the story of being the child of Chinese immigrant parents and how that impacted her. And it is a really short book, but it was so good. Like I enjoyed reading this book so much. I thought that Candace was an excellently done main character. I thought that the story was interesting. The side characters were really interesting, but they didn't since it is so short, they didn't have that kind of side character symptom where it's like there's not enough information for you to be connected to them, so you're disappointed, or there's too much and you feel like it was just way too many details for a side character in a short novel. I think this novel struck a really good balance. I believe I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was the first book I read like January, and I finished it probably within the first few days of the new year, so it was very good. Definitely recommend it. Alright, so the second book I read in the new year, and also the book that put me into a week-long, if not more than weeks-long, reading slump, was In an Absent Dream by Seanan McGuire. This book is the fourth book in the Wayward Children series, a series of books about children who go off to fantastic worlds, so like Narnia, Wonderland, that sort of thing, and then they come back and have to cope with living in the real world. These series kind of walk us through their stories, either in the present world or in the world that they escape to through some kind of magical door. This book follows Lundy, a character we meet in the first book who plays a very active role at the Home for Wayward Children, which is kind of like the real-time, real-world setting for most of the books. This is the fourth book in the series, so I can't say too much without spoiling other elements of the series, but just know I loved it. I think this is one of my favorite books in the series so far. My second favorite. The second book was my #1 favorite in the series so far. I thought that one was just amazing, but the entire series is so well done. It's so creative. All of the books are very short. They're novellas, so not even full novels. All of them are under like 200 something pages. I read most of this during one of my weekend vlogs, so if you want to see my like reactions to some of this, I'm sure there's a little bit of that in one of those vlogs. I'll try to link it up in the cards. But yeah, I just cannot recommend this series enough. It is amazing. Seanan McGuire is amazing. She also has a new release. I will pop an image of that book right here. A new release coming out this year that I'm actually very excited for. The synopsis is super weird, but she likes weird and she does weird well, so I will trust her weird. Alright, so the third book that I finished this year was Intercepted by Alexa Martin, and I really like this book. It's a part of a series, not really a series where like you have to read the books in order or anything, but they're kind of like a bunch of novels that are all going to be kind of set in the same world. So this novel is about our main character Marley, who is proposed to at a baseball game by her like jerk of a boyfriend, and she declines his proposal. This is not a spoiler, this is like all on the back cover. She declines his proposal, and like the whole stadium is out to get her, but luckily there's this really nice guy named Gavin who kind of helps her escape the madness and the chaos, and romance ensues from there, kind of. So it is one of those nice contemporary romances that is just filled with flawed characters and interesting stories and like moments that make you cringe a little bit because you're like so embarrassed for the characters. But I really enjoyed this. I really liked Alexa Martin's writing. It gave me The Proposal vibe, The Proposal by Jasmine Guillory, which I also loved and plan to read all of the. I read the second book in that series and I'm definitely reading the third, and I'll definitely pick up the second book in this series too and keep going. I thought they were interesting. The whole athlete's girlfriend thing. Oh yeah, Gavin, the man who saves her from embarrassment, is a pro football player, and her ex-boyfriend was also a pro football player. So I recommend this book if you're into like really good, diverse contemporary romance. This was pretty well done. And one comment I always have to make when I'm recommending contemporary romance books is about the sex scenes, because they all have these sex scenes that either make you cringe or you're like, you know what, that was nice to read. And this one, I think they were done very well. Next, we're going to get into some of the nonfiction I read. I started reading this book in February because in February I intentionally only read books by Black authors, specifically mostly Black women. The first book I read this year was Well, That Escalated Quickly by Francesca Ramsey, Memoirs and Mistake of an Accidental Activist. I love Francesca Ramsey. You may know her from YouTube or Instagram or any of the other amazing things that she's done. She goes by Cheska Lee, or did on YouTube previously. She used to do like videos about natural hair and her locks. She's a TV personality, a writer, an activist, just overall like awesome, power, amazing person. And I really enjoyed her book. It is, again, a short read. I did think that some points got a little bit repetitive, but that's kind of like the nature of these memoirs, where they're trying to not only reflect and share anecdotes but teach something. They're trying to really push home a message, and hers was definitely like the evolution of internet activism and how you can kind of really check yourself and your online behaviors, especially when it comes to cancel culture and call out culture. So I would definitely recommend her book. I thought it was very well done and it was very creatively done. There's lots of cute like lists and illustrations and such in here, so definitely pick this up. Support a Black woman author. Next, I read Thick and Other Essays by Tessie McMillan Cottom, and oh my goodness, this essay collection blew me away. The essays basically focus on Blackness and womanness and culture and the intersections of all of those things. It's so well done. It's, again, a pretty short book. I also got this book through Book of the Month. I just thought it was so well done. The writing is incredibly intelligent but very digestible. I do think this is the kind of book where you have to, like, I would kind of read an essay every night and then sit on it, read an essay and sit on it. You can't just pour through this. This isn't the book that you're going to finish in an afternoon, but this is a book that if you read it and take time with it and really process and digest it, it will definitely impact the way that you think about a lot of things, especially in the current political climate and news climate. Like, this gave me a lot of really good insight and perspective into a lot of those current event issues, so definitely recommend this book. This next book was actually a reread for me. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I read it for the first time in like 2017 and I just knew I had to pick it up. I was just kind of missing something nostalgic, and that is The Mothers by Britt Bennett. I cannot say enough good things about this book, and all I do is stalk Britt Bennett's Twitter. Like, hey, how's that next book coming? I need more. This book follows one main character, Nadia, whose mother commits suicide and leaves her alone to live with her father, who is ex-military and a little distant, doesn't really know how to communicate with her. Because of that, Nadia's a little bit rebellious. She kind of acts out, she hits the party scene a little bit, but her father is very grounded in their community church, and she's always kind of in touch with that church. It's actually where she meets who comes to be her best friend, Aubrey, another girl who's comes from a very like troubled past and upset household. The book is centered around a relationship that Nadia ends up taking up with the pastor's son, Luke, and just the results of that and how it goes on to impact not only her life but her friendship with Aubrey and her relationship with Luke, the pastor's son. It's really hard for me to describe this book without spoiling the entire thing because, one, it's very short, and two, I've read it so many times and I love it. I also recommend the audiobook. I thought the audiobook for this was pretty solid. I kind of went between listening and picking up the physical copy, and it was a really good reading experience. So definitely just take my word for it. This is one of my favorite books of all time. Pick up The Mothers, you won't regret it. The next book that I read was one that I actually don't own a physical copy of, but I'm going to order one because I really enjoyed it. I just listened to the audiobook on Scribd. If you're not familiar with Scribd, I will link my How to Read More video where you can learn more about some other apps that can give you access to audiobooks, but I read What I Know for Sure by Oprah Winfrey. In it, she basically shares wisdom on things that she has learned over the years, basically just pouring out Oprah wisdom for all of us, and I was just eating up every word. It's definitely the kind of book that you want to listen to and take notes on. I really love the audiobook. She narrates the audiobook, and it kind of felt like if you were sitting in a room with like your great aunt or your grandmother, and she just started to pour out all of the wisdom she'd gained over all of the years of her life to you. I want the physical copy because I want to be able to take notes in it and annotate it, but I gave it 5 stars. It was incredible. Oprah can do no wrong. Buy the book. Next, I'm almost embarrassed to say this is the first time I've read this author, but I read The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. This is the wrong book. There's still books kind of like scattered over my apartment. For those of you who just tuned in and missed a few videos, I recently moved to a new apartment. I will link my moving vlog in the cards and in the description box. So I thought I picked up The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, but I actually picked up Tar Baby, which I have not read yet, but plan on reading soon. But yes, I read The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which is kind of like the coming of age story of this black girl living in the South, Jim Crow South, who just really desires to have these beautiful blue eyes, and she's not seen as a beautiful girl. She has a very, very traumatic home situation, and she befriends 2 other girls, 2 other black girls, who kind of help to tell her story in ways that she can't. We learn the backstory of her parents. Like, Toni Morrison's way with words and metaphor will just like rock your world. I can't believe I waited this long to read my first Toni Morrison book. It was excellent. And now I know I want to slowly make my way through everything that she's written. And the reason that I read Toni Morrison when I did and had to order this book like immediately was because of the book I read right before it. The well-read Black Girl anthology, Finding Our Stories, Discovering Ourselves. So this is an anthology of some very popular, well-known, well-accomplished Black authors and poets and playwrights who basically share how they came to love reading and talk about their path to writerhood. I thought this was beautifully done. The book itself is beautiful. This was one of my most anticipated releases of last year. I pre-ordered it. Like, I could not wait to get my hands on this book, but I did wait until Black History Month to read it. It came out in October, I believe, October, November, but it's just great. Full warning, once you read this book, as you're reading each essay, you're going to order every book mentioned. Like, it's authors telling you their favorite books, and then at the end of each section there's a book list, like a recommended book list. Literally, it's a big book of beautiful essays and book recommendations, which sounds like my brand, honestly. So highly recommend this book. I gave it, I think, either 4.75 or 5 stars, but it was incredible. Like, I loved almost every single essay in this book, which is rare for an anthology for me. Queenie by Candace Carty-Williams. This book was great. It's set in the UK. I love reading books set in the UK. I don't know why. Maybe it's the British slang. I don't know, but I really enjoy them. This book, we follow a young woman named Queenie who is just like in the midst of, she's having a quarter life crisis. Work isn't going well. Her relationship isn't going well. Her friendships aren't going well. Queenie is just going through it, and we kind of follow her as she experiences that breakdown, that everything falling apart, and then as she tries to like find the pieces of herself. I think this was it was a good depiction of someone coming to realize that they have anxiety. I think it's interesting because while reading it as someone who has anxiety, you notice Queenie's anxiety before Queenie notices Queenie's anxiety, which is pretty spot on to like being diagnosed, I feel. That was my experience, at least. So yeah, I really love this book. I did think it was a little slow in the middle, but it was very well done. I was entertained the entire time I read it. Her escapades, sometimes you just want to be like, Queenie, like, girl, get your life. Please stop doing this stuff. But she gets it together, kind of, and you can't help but root for her. And also this cover is probably one of my favorite covers of the year, but I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then flipping back into a little bit of a lighter rom-com, I reached for one of my favorite author duos, Christina Lauren, and read one of their latest, My Favorite Half Night Stand. Christina Lauren's books are just always good. Like, they're always very solid reads. I've never disliked any of their books. This one was probably one of my favorites. So it's about this group of friends who all teach at a university, and they decide that because they have this event coming up that they need to bring dates for, they should all give the dating app scene a try. So they all sign up for the same dating website, and so it's a group of guys and one woman. Millie, she's like the girl in the group, but she's one of the guys. So they all are signed up for this dating website together, and then a little something pops off between Millie and one of the guys in the friend group. So this book was super fun. And Christina Lauren books tend to be a little bit longer. Like this one is 367 pages, but you fly through them. I could not put this book down. I was reading it. I was like staying up until 2 a.m. to finish it, and then in the mornings I would be like, no, I need this on audiobook. Like I have to finish this book. And then I'd be at work like trying to write emails and also listening to the audiobook. It was actually very problematic, but I finished it and I loved it, and I gave it 4 stars. And there were some points in the book where I was like, the premise, like this whole, it's because it's kind of a catfishy situation, but not really. And I was like, oh, I hate that trope. Like I hate when people do that. Girl pretends to be someone else, guy friend realizes that she's a person, but that's not how it happens at all. And the sex scenes in this were very well done for new adult romance. So highly recommend. Again, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And the most recent book that I've read, book number 12. I did not want to read this book. I was not excited about this book. I put it on my most anticipated books releases of the year list simply off of the strength of who the author was. I knew I would buy it and I would give it a shot, but I just kind of like accepted that I was going to hate this book, and I was upset that this was going to be my experience with an author that I love so much. And then I read it and I loved it. That book is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my favorite authors. She's written some of my favorite books of all time. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Maybe Someday. Like all of her books that I've read, I've loved them. I don't think I've ever given a book she's written anything less than 4 stars. This was almost like so close to being a 5-star book for me. If you've read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and you loved it, you will love this book. Like simple as that. It's told interview style. Like it's a mockumentary, so there's an interviewer asking members of this band, The Six, and a singer, Daisy Jones, to kind of recall the time that they rose to fame and why the group ended up disbanding. And I hate that synopsis. Like every time I read the synopsis, I'm like, that's not what this book is about. This book is about faith and hope and family and addiction and music and passion and love. But like, it just happens to be a rock band that is the setting for all of those things. I thought these characters, that's the thing about Taylor Jenkins Reid. She writes characters that are horrid. Like they do terrible things, they make bad choices, but they're real people. Like they have real human flaws, they make terrible choices, big mistakes, but they're real people and they're so relatable in so many ways. I love the characters in this book. Even if I didn't like them, I loved reading the characters in this book. Like I said, it was almost a 5-star read. I would absolutely recommend it. Give it a chance. Don't turn your nose up like I did. Don't ever doubt Taylor Jenkins Reid. She can do no wrong. Solid book. I'm pretty sure by the time I finish marinating on this, I will have increased the rating to a 5-star. Alright, so my camera says that I've been filming for way too long, so I'm going to stop, and that's actually perfect because I'm out of books to talk about. So how will the rest of my reading year go? 12 books in the first quarter. Not bad, I don't think. I think that's pretty good. Let me know what books you guys have read so far this year. What have your faves been? What have you liked? What have you hated? Are there any books here that have convinced you to try out and read? I really hope so. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up so more people can find it and get these great book recs. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, subscribe. I post new videos every single week, and I will see you guys in the next one. Oh, before I go and my camera cuts me off, I have a book club. If you want to read more books that I read and want more recommendations for me, click the link in the description box to learn how you can sign up for book club. Alright, bye for real this time.